I mean, you have one breach or one hack in your business, it could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. And then there's all the implications of any potential lawsuits if you're dealing with any public information, your employees' information, financial data, the list goes on and on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Tech Made Human podcast. This is episode 4. So we are just grooving right along. I'm your host, Marissa Poston. And today we are talking about something that a lot of our SMB owners want to learn about and ask us about a lot. And that is managed IT versus co-managed IT services, but more specifically, the cost. So what SMBs are actually paying for. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest speaker today. And I think you guys might recognize him. Dave, was it episode 1?
I think so.
When we had you on. So this is Dave Clark. He is our go-to IT guy. He knows everything about everything when it comes to managed IT services. He's been in the industry for a very long time. So Dave, hello. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Marissa? And thank you for not saying how long I've been in the industry. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not here to, call anybody out on age. We don't do that around here.
All right.
I'm doing well. We're so happy to have you here. If you're ready, I want to jump right in. This is a big episode. Like I said, cost is just a big thing that everybody wants to talk about. So if you're ready, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's kind of start from the beginning. And I want to talk about more specifically when you're meeting with SMB owners and they just kind of ask you that simple question, what does managed IT services cost? What are they actually trying to figure out?
Well, in most cases, they're trying to figure out whether it fits within their budget or because they have no idea, right? We have 2 different classifications of potential clients. The first would be ones that currently have either a couple things. Number 1, an internal IT company or an IMSP that they're partnered with, IT professionals that work for them, and they're looking to either co-manage or replace them, or they have none of the above. And they've gotten to the size where they really need to have IT support, and it's more than just being able to provide a network connection and baseline security. They're trying to quantify it, right? They're quantify it like a product. And when it comes to services, there's a lot of different choices, right? And every business is different depending upon the vertical market they are, how big they are, what their needs are, and regulatory requirements. So it's a tough question to answer a lot of times, but they just want to say, hey, does this kind of, in my mind, I think this is what it's going to be? Or they're like, I have no idea. I just want to get a basic idea of how much it's going to be. So that would be the kind of the scenarios that come across.
So that makes total sense, Dave. And I think a lot of people will find that pretty relatable as they, start to explore managed IT services and the cost. Now, what should a business reasonably expect in just like a standard or baseline managed IT agreement?
Well, at a bare minimum, they want to make sure that they are protecting their business with a firewall, right? Think of it like a safe door that's protecting their business or the bodyguard outside the bar. Second would be that they want to make sure that they have some type of cybersecurity protection. That varies. It's such a wide term to use, cybersecurity. Something as simple as spam filtering and spoof filtering on an email could be considered cybersecurity, but there's also other things, right? There's the end user's behavior, there's assets, there's endpoints. All of those relate to cybersecurity, but very, very important. They want to make sure that they have access points or a Wi-Fi system that communicates well with their firewall and provides a secure connection for their employees. And they want to make sure that they are protecting all their data behind the firewall with some type of backup. At a bare minimum, that is what they would need. Now, I'm leaving things out like remote monitoring. I'm leaving things out like help desk. I'm saying if you didn't have help desk and you didn't have someone you could call, at a bare minimum, you want to make sure those services that I mentioned previously that they have.
So I'm glad you kind of brought up that second part of that question, because that was kind of my next go-to was outside of those things that you mentioned. What are some things that kind of sit outside of that that would be important kind of to note?
As I stated before, every client's different. And because every client's different, they have different needs. I'll give you a good example, like legal firms, financial firms, medical firms, people that deal with a lot of public data or medical records or legal documents or financial records. they're going to need something called managed SOC or managed security offerings, which is the next layer of cybersecurity. They just absolutely do to meet the regulatory requirements. Sometimes people's inventory or their infrastructure is aging, right? So switches, firewalls, access points, servers, even workstations and laptops. Those things play into whether there's a increase in cost or at least a streamline of that asset over a period of time. In addition to that, you have the other things like, do you need Microsoft Office licensing? Do you need to back up your Microsoft Office instance, whether it be backing up OneDrive or backing up each of the PCs? So those are the things you kind of find out when you're doing an assessment and you're doing a discovery with a client, but those impact the cost overall for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're kind of on this topic, I do want to ask too, in your opinion, what factors move the price up or down the fastest? So, for example, how do remote users or multiple locations or even specialized apps really kind of change the math there in a contract?
It can to a certain extent. If customers have a specialized line of business application that they want to make sure that either A, we're utilizing AI technology or we're utilizing some type of secure connection to make sure that they have access to it when they're out of the office, in the office, and be able to share it with other people. Line of business applications plays heavily on how things are configured more than it does impact cost. But that is something that we definitely want to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to shift a little bit into this next topic because we did talk a little bit about this. What does a cheap or cheaper quote usually leave out that maybe people don't deem as important, but really, you're getting what you're paying for? So, what are some of those things that maybe a cheaper quote just isn't including?
Yeah. So a lot of times the quote just includes help desk, being able to call somebody, they get back to you within the day or two. And if you need to have a technician come out on site, they come out on site. Those would be very common cheaper programs or some type of automated system that remotely monitors their system, but not really managed by engineers, right? Like real people. That's the baseline. Those are the cheaper versions of that. Also, it depends on what the client's needs are, right? There's two different ways that we look at it. We have the all-inclusive full-service managed network services, which is remote monitoring, cybersecurity, help desk, whether it be some infrastructure or something like that. On the other hand, they have what's called co-managed. And co-managed means that sometimes doesn't necessarily mean co-managed, meaning they have people on site and we're managing them. It could. But sometimes co-manage is we're providing one layer of service to them. They may only need help desk. They only may need remote monitoring and not help desk. So every business is different. And when you get to a smaller type business, they may only have one need or the other. Or they may have a guy who is on site that if we needed to escalate something on site, we could. And that's considered a quote unquote co-managed. And I believe we'll talk later about what true co-managed is, but that would be the best way to look at it when you ask the question, what would make it cheaper or less expensive? Those are the things that are kind of considered whenever you're looking at a lower cost that isn't necessarily a true IT services solution.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing you had brought up last week that I wanted to share with our viewers, because it just kind of stuck out to me, was you said this quote, not everyone buys the cheapest car, the cheapest house, or the cheapest security system, right? I mean, we could go on and on about things like that. But more importantly, how should SMBs kind of apply that thinking to IT?
Well, when you think of IT, it shouldn't be based upon price. It should be based upon meeting the need and the value it brings, right? Cost is not just purely the price tag. Cost is the value to your business. And when I say value to your business, good value to your business, or does it put your business at risk, which could be way more than any type of IT contract may cost you. I mean, you have one breach or one hack in your business, it could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. And then there's all the implications of any potential lawsuits if you're dealing with any public information, your employees' information, financial data, the list goes on and on. But I think it's interesting because most people, when they think of IT or they think of ways that they can cut cost, or they look at a cost analysis like a Ben Franklin and they say, what is IT worth? You really have to take a look at three different elements. One is going to be, is my infrastructure secure and do I have the right software, the right applications, and the right company to support me? Next is going to be, do I have the right infrastructure to support my employees and making them productive and also making them secure. Number three, and most important, the weakest link, the employees themselves. The employees themselves is the biggest risk for most clients. So you really need to make sure that you are educating them on their behavior, but also in the event that they click on a link or they open an email they're not supposed to, that they have a system or a software that identifies that and mitigates the risk and quarantines it. Those are the things that you need to look at when you think about value. Value is determined on what are you getting, what is the impact, and what is a long-term growth for my organization, and does those three things fit within what I'm needing? If you do that, that brings value. So you're correct. Not everybody buys the cheapest car. Why? Because some people want more space in their car and they want it to fit 7 people versus 5 because they have an SUV and a lot of kids, right? They may not want to buy the cheapest small economic car. They may want to have more of a luxury vehicle. Maybe they want leather. Maybe they want a sunroof. I mean, there's a lot of choices when it comes to anything that you buy. And I find it interesting when people try to go really cheap on IT because it's the heart of your business. Everything in your business runs around it. And it's not about being the cheapest. It's saying, is this the best value for what my business is getting out of it?
That was really insightful. And I'm glad you emphasized a lot on value, because I think when we talk about value in IT services, it's not even necessarily the actual money part that's valuable. It's all these other things that create value. Even like you said, who's your weakest link in your company? Like you've got to make sure that your employees are trained and that they know not to click these links, or make sure that they have 2-factor authentication for their passwords. So it's this whole thing.
It really is. It really is.
I want to go back to what you had talked about a couple questions ago, because you were just hinting at it, but it is really important. The differences between managed IT services and when that would make the most sense for a company versus co-managed IT services. There is a difference. And I just kind of want to hear your explanation of that and just kind of break it down for our viewers.
Yeah, let's start with co-manage. So co-manage is where we are either partnered with an existing IT group that's located in a business, and they may need to have more resources. So they may be looking for a company to augment what their current deliverable is to their employees. So we may take over help desk, and they handle all the systems administration part, right? The upgrading of the equipment, the security, the firmware, all the updates, all that kind of stuff. They deal with all of that on a daily basis. But they want all their users with, hey, I need a password reset. I can't log in. My computer keeps locking up. This program won't open. They want to basically augment that and push it out to an external company that can help them process those tickets and take care of the everyday transactional issues that their employees have. On the flip side, a lot of companies, they want to maintain that relationship with their employees and they want to keep the help desk, which is fine and understandable, especially if they've been doing it for years. And they want to not worry about the other stuff, right? They want to be able to depend upon another company to do 24/7, 365 because they can't have employees there 24/7, 365 to do systems administration, manage SOC, cybersecurity, firmware updates, security updates. And if they have a failure at 3 o'clock in the morning, are they up and operational, or do they have to reach out to an employee to wake them up in the middle of the night and get them to the office? So it goes both ways on the co-manage. Full manage means that you're hiring a company to do both of those things, right? You want them to do help desk services, provide services and infrastructure and equipment and solutions and software, but you also want them to do the remote monitoring, the systems upgrades, the firmware updates, the security updates, and maintain their environment 365 days a year, 24/7. That is full IT versus a co-managed environment.
Okay, that makes sense to me. You explained that very well. I want to ask you though, do companies, and I might be looking at this wrong, but do companies usually save money with co-managed IT, or is this kind of the wrong way to judge it? Because I can see how some people might say, oh, well, I'll just go with co-managed because, it's probably cheaper, right? We're not totally getting a full managed IT team. We're just kind of doing it with them. But I feel like that might be the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah, I think that when you make the decision to go co-managed, it's not about being the cheapest. They have to look at the value, right? So in most cases, they have an IT guy or a couple of IT people or employees that they have. And it's really difficult to hire all the talent that you need to make sure that your business is secure and you're maintaining all your systems and your users. And when they do the Ben Franklin, which we talked about earlier, which is the cost versus the value, they see a lot more value in that because they're getting the resources of 104 engineers versus going out and finding one or two people. And what if they're sick? What if they quit? What if they go work somewhere else? And they're constantly in that environment of having to find good quality, talented people. And unfortunately, a lot of these companies, when they do that, it's virtually impossible to hire somebody that's disciplined in multiple different areas in software and cybersecurity and all of that. They usually have one particular thing that they're good at, or several, but not everything. When you rely on an MSP like us, you're getting the resources of 104 engineers, right? The engineers have tons of disciplines in multiple areas, and very rarely do we run into an environment where we don't have the resources to resolve it versus going on to ChatGPT or to Google and try to fix it that way and get feedback to resolve the issue. That is kind of what companies need to look at. And when you say, do I go co-manage? Is it cheaper? Yeah, in some respects it is, right? Because you could never hire the resources and the talent that you can get in a co-managed solution by basically hiring people. But you never just want to have co-manage and not have any type of support on site or any type of support being provided by any one of your employees. That is the true definition of co-manage. Co-manage means we're doing it together, right? If you have an environment where you have one guy and you have 13 locations, it's virtually impossible for that one guy to be at 13 locations. So you need to be partnered with a company that has the resources to have engineers that can go to any one of those 13 locations. And if any one of those 13 locations and all of those users have access to help desk and they have access to technicians to resolve their issues and not just be the sole point of contact for every little thing, no matter how big or how small the organization is.
I do think it's a mindset shift of what's cheaper and what's not. It truly is about what your specific needs are for your business. It's not necessarily this cookie cutter thing of either black or white, right? Like there might be a business in the gray area that might need something completely different than it originally thought. So it's not necessarily about measuring the cost of full services and co-man. It's just kind of about what your business needs.
Yeah, let me give you an example. The reason that companies reach out for co-manage is because they need additional IT support in some area in their business. At a bare minimum, someone right out of college is going to be $60,000 a year with a degree in IT. The average actually is $80,000 to $150,000, and if you're in California, it's even more, $1,000 a year, right? So that's a lot of expense. If you need to hire two people, you're talking $160,000 to $300,000 at a minimum. That's a lot. That's a lot of money, and you can get a lot of support from a company like an MSP for that type of money. And that's why when you look at the cost balance between the two, it always ends up being less expensive to go with an MSP. It's never about, is it less than hiring people? It is. It's really, do I have the budget to spend it? And I would argue that if they have the budget to hire somebody, they have the budget to spend it on an MSP to partner with. If they haven't made the decision either way, those are traditionally where the owner goes, I'm not sure if I want to do this, because they haven't really thought it out. And that's why they really need to sit down and have a conversation with an MSP to do what's called a discovery, to kind of walk through those different scenarios so they can truly understand and make an intelligent decision about their business. Because it's a big decision to have somebody else come in and manage your infrastructure and manage your business from an IT standpoint. It's a big risk. They put a lot of faith in that company that they partner with, and they don't make that decision lightly. So sometimes it requires additional discovery and questions and answers for the owner or the decision maker to understand the implications of not doing something versus the implications and the cost of doing something.
If an SMB owner is starting to compare maybe 2 or 3 MSPs, right? They're getting their quotes, they're doing their research. What would you say, with your experience that you've seen and heard, what would you say 4 or 5 bits of criteria they should look at first?
Do they address your pain points or concerns, right? Whether that be something that's happened to your business that you want to make sure doesn't happen again, or you want to protect your business from a cybersecurity standpoint, or you want to make your employees more productive in what they do. You want to provide more of a reliable network connection, for instance, would be a good example. Are they handling any of your pains, right? A good MSP is going to ask, what are the issues you're having? What's going wrong? What's going right? And based upon what's going wrong, what are the implications of that? And a true understanding to matching the technology and the offering that they're walking to the table with should basically diminish those pain points, right? They should address those pain points. If they're not, that means that MSP is not listening to you. The second thing you need to look at is, have they done this before with a business my size, my scope, and equivalent to who I am, right? Do they have experience? There's a lot of people in IT. You can be an IT company out of the garage in your house. And I'm not saying there's not a place for that, right? There's tons of IT people out there that freelance and they need to do side work here and there, but that's not true day-to-day support. So I would venture to say, does the company that you're going to partner with provide 365 days, 24/7 support? If you're an owner or you have employees that have a problem on a Saturday when you're working on a big report, do you have someone you can call? That's a big deal. Most businesses run 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. The second is, are they being proactive in the way they're managing you? Everything in today's industry is based upon service deliverable. And IT is no different, and it's changed dramatically over time. It used to be when you had a problem, you'd reach out to your IT guy or the IT company, and then they would get back to you and they'd be like, I looked at it. I might have to stop by there in the next couple of days and fix it. Pretty easy, right? That was like, I have an issue and now I'm being reactive. The difference is now it's being proactive. Out of the 36,000 tickets we did last year, for instance, at our company, I would say, I think it was like 34% were proactive, meaning we know something's going on before it happens. Most IT equipment doesn't fail one day to the next, not to say it doesn't, but most give you warning signs, kind of like a check engine light on your car. But if no one's maintaining that, and no one's looking at that, which is what that remote monitoring does for you, then it really is, it has to wait to break, and then you're calling somebody to fix it. That can impact your business tremendously, not only from a productivity standpoint, but from a financial standpoint. And finally, are they understanding the type of business you are and the type of cybersecurity protection that your business needs? Is it aligned? Because not all cybersecurity is created equal. I'll use a good example most people would understand. People talk about document management. Document management purely could be the file folders on your computer, right? That's one way to manage your documents, but that's not a full document management solution versus what's, say, like an electronic medical record system that you can type in a person's name, a topic, a date of birth, social security number, and get their complete records. That is a document management solution. Cybersecurity is very much the same. You can get Norton, which is a very popular email spam and filtering software, and it's great, but that's for your home. That's not for your business. It's not the same. You're not dealing with the same type of criminals. You're not dealing with the different areas where people can gain access to your business like they can your home. There's very minimal entrance points into your home, and most popular is your email, right? So cybersecurity is important. And not just saying you have cybersecurity protection. What is it? How does it protect me? And why is it different than other solutions that either A, I've looked at, or B, that I don't have today?
One of those answers that really just kind of makes you think even further about things. I do want to ask you this just because I'm interested. And this could be, a client 1 out of 100, but what would it mean if a business says, hey, Dave, just give me everything, right? Like, give me the top tier package. I don't care. I know I need it. I want everything. What really belongs in that type of package? Like, what does it mean to just kind of go all in?
All in would be, we want to make sure that they have the right infrastructure, right? Firewalls, access point switches. All in is help desk services. All in is remote monitoring. All in is cybersecurity. All in is we're providing all their Microsoft licensing. All in is that we're providing all their backup solutions. That would be like, it's all in, right? We wanted you to do everything for our business.
Yeah, that makes sense. Basically everything you've talked about this episode, right?
Yeah. And that's why, no two clients are the same, right? They all have different needs. And if I looked at the different products and services and software that's available, do you know there's like 156 choices? 156, right? Now, there is some commonality in Baseline that every business needs. But 156 really allows you to be curtailed to that particular customer's needs and wants and issues that they may be having or pain points.
Yeah, it's all about that individual and specific needs of that business.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Dave, I want to get into numbers, actual numbers here. What is the cost of this? If we're talking about remote monitoring, if we're talking about something like help desk support, or if you have a customer that says, let's just do full managed, give me everything. I need some numbers here. You got to give me some numbers.
All right. Well, let's start with the easy one. So co-manage. So there's two things to look at. You have the systems administration, right? That means we're handling all the remote monitoring, all their main infrastructure, their firewalls, their access points, their switches, all that kind of stuff. And then the other one is going to be help desk, which is the users and things like that. So let's start with the systems admin side. It's going to be somewhere between $40 to $90 per user. That is the best way to look at it. If you're looking at help desk, which is providing full support to all their users 24/7, 365, it'd be somewhere between $60 to $110. Okay. Now, if you said, hey, Dave, what if I did everything? Well, everything is very subjective. So that's why there is a very wide range. When I give you the range, you're going to be like, whoa, that's a big range. Well, it's because some customers already have their Microsoft Office licensing. Some customers have just replaced their infrastructure and their cybersecurity protection. So they don't need a replacement. So if I look at the combined total, it's going to be somewhere between $160 per user all the way up to $300 per user. $300 per user is going to be everything, like literally everything. They're doing all of their licensing with us, all their cybersecurity, all of their help desk, all the remote monitoring, all the hardware. It's all in, right? It's all in. So that's why $300 seems like, wow, that's a lot difference between that and 160. Most people land between 160 and 210.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't think that's too terrifying. While we're on the topic of this too, and I kind of want to flip the script a little bit.
Sure.
Before asking an MSP for a quote, or before, maybe even receiving a quote, what should maybe they know about users, locations, apps, support expectations, or potentially like what blind spots make the first pricing conversation a little messy, or a conversation that kind of needs to be revisited? I'm just curious if you're in the mind of an MSP and what they should initially try to start to gather and understand.
You want to take your key stakeholders and you want to have a sit-down conversation before you even meet with an IT company and say, let's talk about what's going wrong, let's talk about what's going right, and let's talk about the biggest concerns of our company. Let's evaluate any of the major changes that we're making over the next year to 3 years. Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the software? Do we have the security? Do we have the protection? Do we have the support that our organization needs? Let's start with that. And that's a very good conversation, because I will tell you that sometimes there's a difference of what an owner thinks and what, say, a manager. And the manager is a person that's the functional employee that has a bunch of employees that work for them. They're the ones that make stuff happen on a day-to-day basis. Not to say owners are not involved. They're not at the ground level a lot of times. But from a strategic standpoint, that is all they really care about, right? Strategic standpoint, providing for their employees, that's important to them. And then you need to talk to a power user, right? That's the person that does the work all day long. What impacts their ability for that department to complete their job or complete their task? What slows them down? What makes things more difficult? What happens when you do have a problem? Those are great questions. And a good MSP during an assessment is going to do that same very thing. But I think it'd be really advantageous for a business to do that ahead of time. The final thing is, what are our pain points? As an organization, after talking to all those different employees, what is our major common thread, right? What is the thing that we all can agree on? We can agree that we don't have a reliable network. We can agree that we probably don't have a good support system. We can agree that our one guy we have on staff, there's no way that they can support 100 people. We can agree that we probably need expertise outside of what our business is, right? Most business owners are really good at what they do, and that's their core competency. I don't think most owners or even their staff, you would ask them, do you want to be in the IT business? Probably not. Just like most people don't work on their cars nowadays. They take it to a car dealership to get repaired, right? Half is because everything is connected with electronic components versus mechanical components that they used to have. Well, no different with IT. Do you want to be in the IT business? Guess what? We're an IT company. I don't want to be in the medical business, but I want to make sure that you're fluent and you are operational in your medical practice. So those are things that they probably need to evaluate. And then the final thing, I know I said final thing before, but here's the real final thing. What are the qualities that they're looking for in an IT company? That's really important, right? The easy one is, well, I want to make sure my business is secure. Okay, good. That's a good one. What happens when something goes wrong? What is their capabilities, right? How quickly do they get back to me? Are they proactive in the way they manage my business? Those are probably questions that you want to know when you're sitting down with an MSP to ask them. Hey, if we had a complete failure on a Sunday night, walk me through the process to get us back up and operational. Walk me through the process of diagnosing what the issue is and coming up with a solution to resolve it. Those are all things you probably want to be prepared to discuss. And if you're not, it's okay, right? It's okay not to know those things. A good MSP should be asking you those things, right? They should be probing you and asking you questions about your business from 3 different areas: the financial impact, the operational standpoint, and the security standpoint. If they're doing all 3 of those things, and then they can convey to you how they'll help you with those areas, then you're sitting across the desk from a very valid IT or MSP company.
I was going to say, sometimes we just don't know the problems that we have, right? You just don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
I think that's when a really valuable and credible managed IT team shows, right? Like they're able to get those answers out of you that you didn't even know were potential problems, or maybe you didn't know that your security was as compromised as it is. And that's why relying on a good MSP provider or company kind of takes it to the next level. What do you think, based on your experience, even maybe in just the last 5 years or so, that the biggest misconception SMBs should just really let go of when it comes to them talking about IT cost?
It's a couple things. The first thing is, the misconception is, I only need to get the bare minimum. I need to only get the bare minimum. And in most cases, it's not enough, right? They just think, oh, well, I have Microsoft Office licensing and I have a router that my cable company provided me for internet. We're good. No, they're not. No, they're not. Not if they want to have at least baseline security in their business or protect their business by at least being behind a firewall. There are minimum requirements. And I think that's a big misconception. The next is that an IT company, when you partner with it, is probably going to be one of your most expensive partners, right? They will be your vendors. It's going to be one of the most expensive vendors that you have to run your business. But the alternative to that is you'd have to go out and buy all the equipment. You have to buy all the software. You have to buy all the cybersecurity protection. You'd have to buy all the monitoring. And oh, by the way, you'd have to hire the employees to support it. And so when you add up all of those things, it's always going to be less expensive to go with an MSP because there's the economies of scale that they can provide you that you could never develop in your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm not going to kill you today. It's like a mini curveball question. If a business has to cut its IT budget somewhere, what's the worst place to cut corners first?
Cybersecurity.
Okay.
The worst. The absolute worst. All you need to do is read the news. And if you don't read the news, all you need to do is go on TikTok or Instagram. You're going to see it time and time again. Security breach, security breach, security breach. And I don't know if you've heard of this thing called AI. That basically is a powerful tool that takes a person with bad intentions and now just become a supercharged hacker, right? And guess what? I don't know if you know this or not, but in most cases, AI is a lot smarter than you. And they're a lot smarter than your employees. And so you have to combat that with software tools and AI technology that combat and identify those particular risks that may be coming after your business, that may be coming after your employees, to mitigate it and stop it immediately. At a bare minimum, that would be my biggest thing. If you threw out cybersecurity, you're basically putting all your business, your financial records, all your employees, all their data like Social Security, date of birth, all that kind of stuff in your HR department. And any client that you ever worked with or any vendor you ever worked with, you've made it vulnerable. And that would be like one of the world's worst things I could see. And quite honestly, we would never partner with a company like that. Because as a good steward of your network, we take liability and ownership of that. And we would never want to put ourselves in a position where they could lose information or some harm could come from that. And we don't want to be any part of that.
I had a hunch it was going to be security related. So I'm glad that I'm learning just as you are teaching. But Dave, I wanted to just say thank you so much for joining us. If people want to get in touch with you, if people want to see what you're up to, where can they go to figure out what you're doing, a little bit more about Dave Clark?
Well, you can always go to our YouTube channel, right? IT Help, but that's always great. And you're going to see the link for that. The second is you can always reach out to me and call me, or you can email me. Do you want me to give them my email and phone number?
Well, no, maybe. I mean, are you on LinkedIn? That would be a
Oh,
start.
yeah, of course. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on everything. I'm not snapping, though. I'm not snapping, but I am on LinkedIn. They can always reach out to me, Dave Clark at AIS, and you'll definitely see me there for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And to our viewers and listeners, thank you again for joining us. Also, I wanted to let our viewers and listeners know that we have a ton of content on our website and our learning center, very specific to managed versus co-managed IT. We've got a lot about security. We have a lot about cost. We even have a lot of articles and videos just talking about how to find the best managed service provider near you, what to look for in a company. I am Marissa Poston, your host. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you all next time.